it's Ian Blackford, who's leader of the SNP at Westminster, who joins us from his constituency in the Scottish Islands. Hello, Ian.
Hi, good evening. Aiki Vamaha, as we would say in the Isle of Skye.
Well, what does that mean?
Aiki Va, good evening.
Ah, right. I should have worked that out.
That's the sum towards my Gaelic as well. It doesn't go beyond that. All those years of watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer in Gaelic haven't paid off for me, unfortunately.
Mariana was just
Really?
looking at me and thinking, he really is as daft as he looks.
I was just thinking it'd be quite funny if you'd chosen a different phrase, not good evening. You'd actually just said something completely random.
Congratulations on becoming political editor. Anyway, we'll put that to it. Right, Ian, today's big news obviously has been Partygate. Some people calling it the end of Partygate or the end of this bit of Partygate. The fact that Boris Johnson only got one fine in the end, does that mean actually you and the other opposition parties maybe made too much of a fuss about it, about him personally?
No, not at all. And, I think when we reflect on this, and okay, this is the end of the police investigation, I'm pleased about that. But when we reflect on the scale of it, 126 different fines, 8 different parties. Let's just reflect on that. Parties that were taking place, parties that broke the law, parties that the Prime Minister was at, and he is the only Prime Minister that's ever been fined in office that's broken his own laws. This isn't the end of the matter. We've got the Sugri report to come, and of course there's the parliamentary inquiry to come into the Prime Minister as well. Look, I think at the end of the day, many people, millions of people up and down these islands are frankly still disgusted and angry at the behaviour that was seen taking place in 10 Downing Street.
Given, though, Ian, we can be pretty certain the Prime Minister isn't going to volunteer to go as a result of all of this, in all likelihood. Is there not an issue now with this raging cost of living crisis for so many people that the political conversation gets onto other stuff pretty quickly? Because, a viewer, a listener might just think, look, this just looks like navel-gazing from ages ago. Can't you talk about what matters now?
Well, of course, what we have been talking about is the cost of living crisis. That's what I raised at the Prime Minister's questions yesterday, and we've got a Prime Minister and a Chancellor that are not taking the responsibilities. People are really struggling. We've had a report this week talking about families that are going to end up in destitution. And the fact that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, they should have accepted the amendments that I put down, that others put down in the Queen's speech, to have a tax on the profits that oil companies are making. Let's remember that whilst people are really struggling, oil companies are making excess profits because their costs are relatively fixed. That money should be recycled back into the pockets of those that need it to give them some respite from this.
Do you sniff a U-turn in on all of that? It looks like the government might be limbering up for one.
Yeah, and I'll be grateful if they do, because at the end of the day, when you look at the inflation that we're seeing, and the real pain that people are in, and the fact that people are having to turn their heating off, people going without meals. And if the government U-turns on this, then I will congratulate them, because it's about making sure we're supporting people that need financial help today.
Rishi Sunak gets a lot of attention because of his wealth, and you're actually a former investment banker. There's a lot of talk about you being a multimillionaire. How does that affect the way that you relate to something like the cost of living crisis?
Well, look, I mean, I suppose in some senses I don't mind the question. I've never hidden the fact that I've had a career in the city, and one that I have to say that I enjoyed what I did. But like a lot of people, I came from a very ordinary background. I was brought up in a council house estate in Edinburgh, and I want to make sure that those that I represent, not just those that I represent, but those right across the United Kingdom, have got the opportunities that we had, and importantly that we don't have a them and us, that we don't have a situation that there are people that are wealthy in society but that we're leaving people behind. There's a phrase that I've used that I will continue to be guided by, and that is society is only as strong as its weakest link. And the fact that so many people are living in poverty that are in work, that is something wrong. Yes, I had a career in the city looking at companies, but at the end of the day, what I want is a fair and just society where nobody is left behind.
Sure, understandable. But does that mean, though, that because of your background, which some people might describe as wealthy, have you sort of forsworn attacking Rishi Sunak for being wealthy and out of touch then? Because actually some opposition parties do have a go at him for his wealth. Is that something that you would just choose not to do because it would open you up to charges of hypocrisy?
I think it's right that, as I have done, as we have done as a party, we've highlighted the hypocrisy of Rishi Sunak and the tax arrangements that he's had and the non-dom status that his wife had. That's perfectly legitimate. No, I mean, people should not be against wealth creation. It's important that we have wealth creation, and I've never hidden the fact that I've had a life. I've had a life in the city where I was well paid. But look, I would like to think I'm a reasonably ordinary citizen. I live in a crofting township in the Isle of Skye. I operate together with my wife a croft. But I think at the end of the day, how you behave and how you discharge the responsibilities that you have to make sure that there's fairness in the taxation system.
Moving the conversation on a bit, something I actually spend a lot of my time looking at is online hate. And when I knew we were speaking to you, I was looking at a lot of the kind of online hate that's been triggered by discussion around Scottish independence, also around the COVID pandemic. And I've particularly noticed in the COVID conspiracy groups, a lot of them have been going for MPs from the SNP because of their stance when it comes to COVID measures. What's that been like? Have you been caught up in any of that?
I think we all have been. A lot of politicians, of course, get really quite hateful stuff, and of course that's gone as far, sad to say, as the death of two individuals. And I have to say I'm deeply worried about where we are as a society, where we are with our political discourse. There was an article in the Scottish edition of the Sunday Times a few weeks ago, written by John Boothman, where he quoted myself and a Labour MP, Ian Murray, and Andrew Bowie, a Tory MP, and we all said that all of us have got a responsibility to call out bad behaviour. And I want to have a situation where, for all of us, we can have a conversation about ideas, we can have a conversation about policy. But we need to make sure that people can contribute to debate, whether they're in politics or elsewhere. And of course, the same goes for journalists.
Ian, I can't let you go without not asking you about Scottish independence and the plan that we've heard regularly from your party leader, Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland's First Minister, about having another independence referendum before the end of next year. And I just wonder, with where the opinion polls are right now, the view of Boris Johnson and everything else going on in the world, I put it to you that realistically that's not going to happen.
Oh, I'd put it to you, I think it will happen.
Think
Chris,
it will, or it will definitely happen?
It will happen. Look, Chris, we have a mandate that was given to us by the people of Scotland last year at the Holyrood election. And it's worth, I think, reflecting on what happened. Of course, we've got the hybrid system. We have list members, we have constituency members. But the way that Westminster looks at things, of course, is through the prism of first past the post. 73 seats in Scotland. The SNP won 82 of them. 62 of them. We won 85% of the seats first past the post. Well, there's an overall majority for independence in the Scottish Parliament. This is about democracy. But what I'm excited about is that our government in Edinburgh are going to be releasing a series of papers about our vision for an independent Scotland. How will we create the wealth? How will we create that green future? How will we create that bridge from fossil fuels to green energy?
When will we see that?
How we drive it? You'll see those over the coming period. They're coming soon. And
Sounds
I'm really looking forward to engaging with you. Well, you'll not have long to wait.
Period? I mean, that could be any period, couldn't it?
It sounds also like one of those expensive magazines where after 98 weeks you have half an aircraft carrier.
No, listen.
Piece by piece, week by week.
You'll not have long to wait, and I look
actually,
forward
will you
to
want a piece of the aircraft carriers, actually, when there's an independent Scotland? Anyway, let's not get into that. We'll wait for the paper on defence and how you carve up the nuclear deterrent and things like that. Now, Ian, you mentioned the croft that you run with your wife. I saw that you tweeted a video of some very cute lambs gambling about in a beautiful scenic setting. Bit of grass, bit of greenery, bit of sea, very cute.
A bit of grass. I wish there was grass and we could stop feeding them.
Okay, you're now testing my sheep rearing knowledge. But be honest, for us townies, are some of those cute lambs, have they ended up on people's plates by now?
No, not yet.
Okay,
look,
not yet.
Let's be honest. I mean, we have sheep. Our lambing takes place every spring. We will sell the lambs later on this year. They'll be sold on to be fattened up elsewhere. I hate to say it. I mean, if you're a girl, then you've got a decent future ahead of you because you'll be used for breeding purposes. If you're a male, well, you need to become what we would call a tup, a ram. Or that is unfortunately largely the lamb that you'll see on your plate in a year's time or so. But that's the feeding chain. When it becomes difficult, every year we always end up with a couple of pets. So we've got 2 lambs that the mothers have rejected them, unfortunately.
Well, you're not going to
And they're
tell us
both-
you eat them.
Well,
they're pets.
They're pets. They're 2 male. We get them every blooming year. So this year's
Do they
pets are
stay
called
as pets?
Yeah, how many have you got? Surely it's like the law of exponential growth, which you learned from COVID, means you must have about 100 now.
No, there's not quite 100, but there's a number of pets. Let me say that. So this year's 2 have been called Mango and Chutney, and I'm trying to negotiate that they're sold on as pups elsewhere, because you can't keep keeping pets. But there is an attachment that you have to them, and they'll actually come to the door and bang their noses on the door to be allowed in to be fed. So lambing is a lovely time of the year. It's a time I really enjoy, and we always make sure that lambing takes place in the Easter recess, so I can be here to help with the family.
Well, Ian and Mango and Chutney, thank you very much.